This video shows students how to run the examples from the Jupyter notebooks in Eclipse. First of all, you need to download the zip file that's on the OnQ website containing the uh, Eclipse project archive for the CISC 124 Notes Part 1 project. Once you have that file downloaded, you want to import the project into Eclipse. So select File, Import, Existing Projects into Workspace, browse for your archive file, and it's going to be CISC 124 Notes Part 1 Project.zip. Select that file, make sure this is clicked, this has a check mark beside it, and press Finish. And you'll see this project appear in your Package Explorer. Click on the triangle and click on the source folder. You'll see that there's a package called CA Queens U CS CISC 124 Notes Util. That contains classes that some of the examples need to run. Now you're going to want to make a separate package for each one of these notebooks. Otherwise you'll end up putting all the examples into a single class, and that's not going to be very useful. So on source, right click or go to the file menu and do new package. And I'm going to look at the examples from the loops notebook. So I'm going to open that, and I'm going to create a package called loops, and just click finish. And now you'll have a package called loops. We haven't talked about packages yet in the class. It's just a way to organize your Java files into a convenient structure. You'll want to make a class to run the examples in. So make sure that the loops project is selected, and then right click new class, or file, new class. And I'm just going to call the class examples. And then click the public static void main checkbox, and Eclipse will automatically create a main method for you. And so here's our examples class. You can delete this line. Okay, now the idea is that basically as you read the notebook, you're going to want to copy and paste any Java examples into this main method. So let's skip past the Python examples here, and we'll come to the first example of a Java loop, which is right here. So you're going to want to copy this code and just paste it into your main method. And once it's pasted into the main method, it should run. So you want to save, click the run button, and the output should appear down here. So this gives you the similar effect as to running that cell that the example came out of in Jupyter. Now the main difference is that if the Jupyter notebook is working for you, you can just edit the code directly in this cell and run it. Whereas if you're using Eclipse, you have to copy the code from here and then into Eclipse. Now when you come to the second example, you'll probably want to comment out the first example. So just use a multi-line comment and copy out the first example, and then copy the second example and paste it into Eclipse. You want to save and then run the example. Now here Eclipse is complaining that there's an error, and there is an error, and this is intentional. We'll proceed anyway. And you see here that there's an execution error. So it's an unresolved compilation error. It tells you that this thing item can't be resolved to a variable. So the problem is here, the variable name item, which was declared here, is local to the for loop. So after the for loop, you're not allowed to use item. So this example behaves exactly the way it's supposed to. When you're satisfied with this example, comment it out and continue with the next example. So let's do one more. We'll do the third example. Just copy the code from here, paste it in here, save, the file in Eclipse and then press the run button. And here we've got this 5 by 5 matrix of values. Now, some of the examples in the notebooks use a class that I've created, which is actually here. So it uses this class called Utils. And you can tell that it uses that class because in the example, you have to import that class. So the same thing happens now in Eclipse. To run this particular example, I need to take the two import statements, copy those, and those have to go under the package declaration but before the class declaration. So we have to paste it into there. And now we can comment out the previous example and paste the current example into the Eclipse. Save the file and then run the file. And it generates the output that we expect. Now, if you forget to paste these lines, copy these lines into Eclipse, when you go to run the example, you'll get an error. And so it'll say there's an unresolved compilation error. This thing utils can't be resolved, and it's because you didn't import it at the beginning of the class, well before the class. And that's basically it. So you can get the examples to run by running them in Eclipse if you're having trouble using the notebooks. The disadvantage is any changes you make to the code. So if you decide that you want to edit this code to see what it does, you won't have the edit in your notebook. In other words, you'll have to come back to Eclipse and see what it is that you did. You can still make changes to the notebook. So for example, you can still add cells and make notes to yourself, and you can edit the code in the notebook. It's just you can't run the code in the notebook. It's just you may have trouble running code in the notebook. And that's basically it. What you'll end up with is a file with lots of the examples commented out. If you want to revisit a previous example, just comment out the current example, and then go back up to the example that you want to review and uncomment it. Save the file and run it again. The alternative is to put every example into its own class, but you'll end up with a lot of classes for some notebooks. So some notebooks have 20 or 30 examples. You'll end up with 20 or 30 classes. You might want to do it that way. And that way you'll be able to have each example in its own class. But you can also do it by having every example in a single main method. It's up to you how you want to do it. And that completes this video.